They are an extremely good fish to eat. But unfortunately, everybody hears the word carp. And you go back to common carp and you think, oh, they feed on the bottom. They're icky. They're full of bones. They're just nasty. The silver and the big head carp are plankton filter feeders. The meat is super clean, it's a really nice white meat, little teeny bit sweet, mild flavored, really, really good to eat.
Welcome to the Woman Angler and Adventurer podcast, inspiring real women with a passion for fishing and the outdoors to go get their adventure on. Now, here's your fearless host, Angie Scott.
Welcome back to another episode of the Woman Angler and Adventurer podcast. This week we're covering a topic I've wanted to feature for quite some time and found the most perfect guest to bring on to discuss it. Gretchen Steele is an outdoor public affairs communicator in Illinois, and we're going to be talking about a major issue affecting our fisheries, and that is Asian carp. I wanted to do my part to help get the word out about this issue and what each of you as listeners can do to help make a positive impact. So listen in and enjoy learning all about this invasive species, which thankfully is also a really great and healthy fish to eat. Gretchen Steele, welcome to the Woman Angler and Adventurer podcast. And before we get into this week's topic, would you mind giving listeners just a little background on yourself and what you do?
Well, I'm an outdoor writer and photographer. I'm a member of AGLOW, the Association of Great Lakes Outdoor Writers.
Yeah, awesome.
I was on the board there once upon a time. I'm also a member of Missouri Outdoor Communicators. Even though I live in Southern Illinois, I like my friends across the river. I'm a river rat.
Okay.
I'm lucky where I live is in a triangle between the Kaskaskia River and the Mississippi River. And we're right in that little triangle. Our county is where the confluence is. So I'm pretty much surrounded by rivers, and I've been on the river all my life.
Nice. Yeah, that's kind of the opposite of me. So I grew up in Minnesota, and I've been a lake person. So rivers I'm not super familiar with. We never really went out on the river, fished much on rivers. We were just always going to the lakes. And so now that I'm in Tennessee, like all our lakes are actually reservoirs, man-made off of river systems. So it's been a little different for me getting used to actually having like channel markers and things like that I just wasn't around growing up. So,
and it was a learning experience for me when I started traveling to Wisconsin and Minnesota and being on the big lakes, and the difference between, it was just the reverse of kind of your experience. It's like, boy, this is different. And they would talk about clarity during sturgeon spearing season, and clarity's bad. And I'm like, I can see the bottom, guys. Where I come from, if you can see 3 or 4 inches, you think you're cooking with gas.
Right.
What are y'all complaining about?
Yeah. Well, have we crossed paths at all with AGLOW? I've been to the last couple conferences.
I have not been to the last couple of conferences.
Okay.
So I think maybe we have not. I think we do have probably have multiple mutual friends and acquaintances and colleagues through AGLOW.
For sure. Yep. I've loved it. It's been game changing for me to get involved with that organization.
I think it's a wonderful organization.
Yeah.
I can't say enough good things about AGLOW.
Yeah,
it's been great for me.
I was so bummed that the conference got canceled this year because I was all excited. Finally, my first trip of the year to go up to Michigan. It was going to be in Gaylord, Michigan, and I run a Quest pontoon, and so they're up there as well. And it kind of worked out that they were going to have their dealer week the same week, so I was going to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, and then it all got canceled. So that was kind of a bummer.
It's been quite the year here in Illinois, let me tell you.
Yeah.
We had every bit of our public land in Illinois shut down in March. Every single acre.
Wow.
And it's been it's been difficult here in Illinois. It really has been. And our particular area has been, even though we're southwestern Illinois and mostly you hear about Chicago, it's been hit pretty hard. I think we're going into additional mitigations probably in the next few days again. Yet once again.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. This thing just doesn't seem to be going away anytime soon. So we'll see. But yeah, I remember one of the states, you know, that there was all this uproar about people not being able to like go out on the lakes or on the water.
That was us.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That was awful. I couldn't imagine. And I was scared that, you know, other states would follow suit. And I'm like, okay, this is the one thing we can safely do, you know, and still maintain our sanity, you know, to be outdoors.
Well, and it was really difficult. It was spring turkey season. A lot of Illinois' turkey permits are what they call site specific. So your permit is only good, say, at in Pyramid State Park. You can't use your turkey permit anyplace else. Can't use it on private ground. That's the only place you can use it. You couldn't get on the property, so you couldn't turkey hunt.
Yeah. Wow.
Most of the ramps along the river are maintained by DNR. And so the ramps and the parking areas to get on the river, they were closed, no access. So you couldn't get on the river during spawn. I mean, it was just, the public outcry was really, really tremendous, let me tell you.
I can imagine. Yeah, I would not have done well if I was there. So hopefully that doesn't happen again, but we'll see where the future's taking us here. But so the reason I wanted to have you on the show, and you had made a post a little while back in the Woman Angler and Adventure Facebook group about a statewide Asian Carp Cookout in Illinois, and I've been wanting to cover that topic on the show for a while, and so when I saw that and I reached out to you, and it just all kind of worked out, and you mentioned they actually taste pretty good.
Asian carp, and I need to be kind of clear. There's 5 types of invasive Asian carp that we're concerned about. Silver carp, and those are, some people call them jumping carp or flying carp. They're the ones that jump up out of the water in the big masses and create havoc. And then there's the big head carp. They're very similar to the silver. They're bigger and have a much bigger mouth and gill system. And some folks call them bucket mouths. I mean, some of these are so big you could probably put a 5-gallon bucket in your mouth. Then a little lesser known are the grass carp and the black carp. Okay. So what we're really fighting we're fighting all of them, but the big push is on the silvers and the big heads. And they are an extremely good fish to eat. Wow. But unfortunately, everybody hears the word carp. And you go back to common carp, and you think, oh, they feed on the bottom. They're icky. They're full of bones. They're just nasty. The silver and the big head carp are plankton filter feeders. The meat is super clean, it's a really nice white meat, little teeny bit sweet, mild flavored. Okay. Really, really good to eat. Over the years, we've done a lot of blind taste test, and we'll put out bluegill and crappie and bass and Asian carp. And people will consistently pick the Asian carp. And then when you tell them that they've eaten Asian carp, they look at you like you have 3 heads. I mean, they just can't believe it. The biggest downfall is it's a bony fish. You can fillet it out boneless, but it's a little tedious. So a lot of folks will just grind it up. And then that grinds up all those little bones, those little Y bones. Or they will can it or pickle it to soften up the bones.
Gotcha.
But it's because it has kind of a mild flavor, it takes on whatever, you can fix it Mexican style, whatever you come up with as an idea for using it, it will take on that flavor profile. Okay. So it's really versatile.
And how did the statewide Asian Carp Cookout go? Because I know that happened last month.
It went fabulous.
Awesome.
It was just, I've been pushing for people to eat Asian carp for a long time. And like I said, what we run into, the biggest issue is people hear carp and they automatically think, oh, ick. Mm-hmm. And if you've ever encountered an Asian carp when you're out boating or fishing and they get in your boat, they have a pretty thick slime coat and they have a really not so pleasant odor. So on the surface, they seem like a really yucko fish.
They're also not all that attractive.
No, they are not pretty fish. It's kind of like some days I feel like we're trying to put lipstick on a hog, but they taste so good. And once people learn to clean them, then, and once people have eaten them, they almost always change their mind. The cookout was super. What Illinois DNR did, they partnered with various restaurants throughout Illinois, statewide, north to south. I mean, it was from fancy schmancy places in Chicago. The event I was at Giant City State Park in deep southern Illinois. Great turnout. Each location, each chef or organization that signed on to do this prepared carp in a different way. DNR provided us with ever how much of the ground carp, and when you get the ground carp, you can buy this. When you get the ground carp, it reminds you a whole lot of ground turkey, to be honest.
Okay.
With you. So they were provided with however much ground carp they needed for their particular recipe, and then they prepared the recipe there on site and served it to folks free. Some folks did carp burgers, carp tacos, carp croquettes. At Giant City, we had a Jamaican style. It was ground carp with this really interesting spices and pepper and vegetables, different vegetables and stuff mixed in it, that was served with a warm kind of flatbread type thing. Really, really good.
Sounds
in
good.
Our case at Giant City, we were scheduled to serve between noon and 2. By noon, we had a line of people through the parking lot, and we were completely out of carp by 20 after 12. In 20 minutes,
wow,
we ran out. And that kind of is what happened all over the state. And folks were just really amazed at what a good tasting fish this is. And, where can we buy this? Where can we buy this?
Huh.
So we got it in their mouth.
Yep.
We got them to try it. They like it. So next phase is having more, is to continue to build a market, get it into more places retail. We do have some of the universities, U of I, SIU at Carbondale, some of the DNR cafeteria at the DNR headquarters. We're getting state facilities to serve it in their cafeteria.
Okay.
So that's helping out a good bit. It's a super, super healthy fish. Probably the only fish that is healthier for you to eat is wild salmon.
Okay. Wow.
It's very high in omega-3s, and because they're filter feeders and plankton feeders, they don't have the contaminants that you get in some of your bottom feeding fish or predator fish. We've also seen a push in Illinois to get it into food banks.
Yeah.
Because it is such a high protein, low fat, good for you to eat. This really is an answer to some of our hunger issues.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it sounds like a a really good route to help, provide a solution for the problems that they're causing in our ecosystems. For sure, it seems like,
It absolutely is. They're so widespread. I mean, it would be easier to say what waterway aren't they in and what
Right.
waterway they are in. And I don't, we're past the stage of the game that we're ever going to be able to eradicate them. That's just not going to happen. But with a robust commercial fishery, we can keep them at bay.
Mm-hmm.
We can keep them at a level we can live with. And, that's been primarily, I think, one of the most successful ways of removing them from the waterways is using commercial fishermen.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is we just don't have a great market yet.
Right. And I heard, and
Kentucky's had some really great success. I just got to say, those commercial fishermen on Kentucky and Barkley and that particular area, those guys are fantastic. And they are doing such a great job. And overall, Kentucky has done good in getting processing there, adding a state incentive to the price that the processor pays, so the commercial guys are making a little bit more. And they're doing a super job there.
Awesome.
We just need more markets.
That's actually the first encounter I ever had with Asian carp was on Lake Barkley. And I was fishing a tournament, so I was a co-angler. I was in the back of the boat, and then my boater was up front working the trolling motor, and one came up out of the water and about hit him, scared him half to death, and startled me too. I was like, "What was that?" And it was an Asian carp. And I've got a friend I've had on the podcast. You might know her, Jen Ripple. She lives in the Land Between the Lakes area, and we were kind of texting back and forth about it this morning, talking about Asian carp, and she said that they've just totally ruined the bass fishery there now in Lake Barkley. So I know that and Kentucky Lake.
They really do wreck the fishery. They reproduce in a fashion that is just mind-boggling. Mm-hmm. They eat constantly. They grow incredibly fast. They'll grow first year, young of the year can get up to, can grow 12 pounds in a season. That's a phenomenal growth.
Yeah.
Then you end up with such a biomass, they're competing with the other fish for food to a degree. They're eating the plankton, the small invertebrates, excuse me, those things that your fry are eating. And then the biomass just becomes so great. They just crowd out your game fish and your sport fish. And all you've got left in your water are these just huge schools and big masses of Asian carp. In Illinois, up in certain parts of in the northwestern part on the Illinois River, DNR has estimated that 90% of the biomass is Asian carp.
Wow.
Now that's scary.
That is scary. And it surprised me to learn that they've actually been in our waterways since like the 60s and 70s. Seems like just in the last, several years is where we've really started to hear about them being a major threat and issues.
We were talking about that. I checked with an older friend of mine that also runs nets on the Kaskaskia. And I couldn't remember exactly when we first started seeing them on the Kaskaskia. And so he went back and pulled, because he has all of his records going back to like 1954. Every time he ran his nets, what he caught, how many. And he said he encountered the first one like in 1989. Then he was kind of like, what is this crazy thing? What is this fish? Yeah. We really saw him pick up, and I guess you could say that's when it just started getting really bad, was after the flood in 93. that just seemed to spread them everywhere, and they just took off like crazy. And with each passing year, it just gets worse.
Is there a size? You mentioned how fast they get. Are the bigger ones still good to eat, or is there like?
Yeah.
Okay.
They absolutely are.
Okay.
They can get really big, which is problematic with the silvers that jump, because nobody really wants to be slapped upside the head,
right,
with a 30-pound fish when you're running up the river in your boat. For those of us that spend a lot of time on the river, well, I mean, broken noses, broken jaws, stuff on your boat wrecked, things knocked out of your boat, people knocked out of their boats, off their jet skis.
Wow.
Quite the adventure sometimes.
Yeah, that's
the big heads. They can get up to 5 foot long, 110 pounds.
Wow.
Silvers will go. They'll go probably about 4 foot, maybe a little bigger, and anywhere up to 40 or 50 pounds. It just depends on where they're at. So they can get really, really big in the right areas. We aren't seeing quite as many of the great big ones as we used to, and I think part of that is because there's just so many of them. It's like anything; they're even crowding themselves and not being able to eat as much.
Interesting. Well, when I was doing research for this, one thing I came across that was kind of made me chuckle is there's a redneck fishing tournament, and it says it's in Bath, Illinois, where people compete to catch these with their nets as part of the tournament. That's
and you will find. I mean, that's probably one of the largest ones, and certainly the most well publicized in my particular neighborhood. There are any number of civic organizations, the local fire department or the Altar Society, that will have a similar type tournament on the weekend during the summer months. And it's just, you go out and ever how many, and people, they decorate their boats, and they construct these elaborate butterfly wing things, or they have 6 guys with big long nets. It's really a hoot to watch one of these. It really is. But it takes, the goal is to get the Asian carp out of the waterway.
Right.
One of our local Fish and Wildlife areas started 7-8 years ago. It's the Kaskaskia River State Fish and Wildlife Area. And the site super there recognized that, sport fishing was, really going down. We got to do something about this. So through our DNR, they sponsor a annual bow fishing tournament to clean out, and the goal of the tournament is to take out the silver. So, and then it's like any other bow fishing tournament, except the goal is to see who can get the most silvers out. And it's really grown and turned into a community event. We cook and serve silvers at the local Delta Waterfowl chapter, cooks and serves silvers and some of the other rough fish out of the river. At the tournament, we have, the catfish guys come and get carp from the tournament for bait. We have some researchers that come and get them for different research projects. Half the community shows up to watch weigh-in and, applaud, because that's that many of those darn jumping fish that aren't in the river.
Right.
So it's turned into a real community-wide, well-supported event. And, are we making a big dent? No, but again, every one of them that's out of the water is one less.
Right. Well, and I know one of the big initiatives that I've heard about, and Drew Youngdyke, he's talked about this at Aglow. He talks a lot about the importance of trying to keep them from getting into the Great Lakes. I know that that's a huge initiative, because once they're in there, and they're self-sustaining, that's gonna be a major issue. So,
absolutely. And I think we can, to a degree. I think we can look at what's happened, not just on the river systems, but when we think about the Great Lakes, we think about the fishery. We also have to think about the tourism economy, the fishing tournament economy, everything that a good fishery in the Great Lakes provides economically. We're seeing that damage happen at Kentucky Lakes now. We are. And so that's kind of like almost a portent of things to come if they were to get into the Great Lakes.
Right.
We know what kind of damage they do ecologically. We know what kind of damage they do economically. They just create a lot of havoc, no matter how you cut it. And if they once get into the Great Lakes, that just almost makes my stomach hurt.
I know,
to think about that.
Me
I've
too.
seen the damage that they've done here, seen the damage that they're doing in Kentucky Lakes, and the thought of them getting in the Great Lakes, like I said, that's just scary.
And prevention is a lot more economical than trying to eradicate them once they get in there. So that's one reason why this is so important.
We're starting to see, we finally got things moving on some of the barrier systems. And early data on those looks like they're working pretty well.
Good.
So, it's a matter of the biggest issue with any kind of barrier system. At one point in time, even the idea was floated to close the Chicago Canal to keep them out of the Great Lakes. Well, you've just shut off a huge commerce waterway, and you can't really put that that didn't fly very well, because you still have to have that waterway for commerce. So they've come up with several different types of barriers: sound, light, bubbles, all working with different degrees of success, and still kind of early in the game to tell how well they're really going to work. So it's going to really take a combination of those types of efforts, barriers, stuff at the locks and dams, go through a lock. When the boats lock through, different types of barrier systems. And then when you add in commercial fisheries, commercial fishermen, between the two, it's hoped that will somehow keep them from moving further north and keep them and start knocking back the populations where they're at.
Are there any other solutions other than commercial fishing and barrier systems that are in place?
There's been some discussion about biological solutions. The unfortunate piece of that is, we've already messed things up enough. Let's throw some kind of weird disease into and hope it just hits the carp.
Right.
There are some different biological solutions and or chemical solutions, but the unfortunate piece of those at this time, they don't just affect the carp. So you're really messing with the whole ecosystem some more and risking wiping out an entire fishery.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like a very effective solution there.
Yeah, well, I believe it's in Australia. They've been testing some kind of virus that supposedly, in the early stages, will only affect the carp. I don't know. That kind of makes me a little nervous.
Yeah. Anytime you start messing with that stuff, it makes me nervous too, for sure. What can individuals do to help?
Start eating them.
Yeah.
Start asking grocery stores and restaurants to carry them. If you're an angler and one gets in your boat, certainly don't put it back in the water. Kill it.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is, if you're an angler, you learn to clean them and utilize the ones that do end up in your boat. It's a shame that there just aren't any good hook and line methods for catching them, because that would make all the difference in the world. But because they're filter feeders and the way they feed, there just aren't any methods other than snagging. And snagging's only, snagging, you run into all kinds of regulations about snagging. I wish there was some hook and line way that you could catch them hook and line, because they're big fish. They're, they would put up a fight. They would be a fun fish to catch, but it's just the nature of the beast, the way they eat. That's nobody's come up. There's been 2 or 3 different methods tried, but they haven't ever really been super successful, to be honest with you.
So other than snagging or bow fishing, I guess.
Bow fishing is about, for the average person, bow fishing is pretty much the easiest way to get them in the boat, to utilize them to eat, or to even just get them out of the water. Work with your, visit your own state DNR or Fish and Wildlife website, see what they have going on with Asian carp. Talk to your local politicians, to your local legislators, and make them understand that this is a threat and they do need to push money towards this problem. That's also historically been a little bit of an issue, is making various legislative bodies, whether it be local, federal, or state, understand it's sometimes hard if people aren't directly impacted. They just can't see that a fish is causing all this trouble,
right,
and all these difficulties. Learn to bow fish. It's really great fun. It's little kids can do it, from little kids on up, and it's great fun. So, support whatever efforts are going on locally. And again, eat them, look for restaurants, ask your grocery store to carry them. The sooner we can build a good, robust market for them, the better off we'll be.
Awesome. Well, those are some great suggestions. I'll put a video on the website for this episode, which will be thewomanangler.com/158. I'll put a YouTube video on there that shows you how to identify Asian carp, so that should help as well. So when you do come across one, you know what it is, and you know not to put it back in the water.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
Just so you know, USGS, United States Geological Survey, they have a lot of really good information about Asian carp, with maps and long-term data and numbers, and they're using the ArcGIS stuff to build kind of like an Asian carp story type thing, and there's a ton of good information through USGS.
Okay. I'll put a link to that on the website as well then. So awesome. Well, I really appreciate you coming on the show and talking about this. Like I said, it's been a topic I've wanted to cover pretty much ever since I started the podcast. So I'm glad to have the opportunity to get the word out and hopefully help make a difference in what's going on.
I want to extend an invitation to you. Good Lord willing and COVID resolving, we will be having our bow fishing tournament again here in July, the DNR sponsored tournament.
Okay.
I'd like to extend an invitation. Come up. I can promise you, we'll get you on a boat with experienced bow fishers and let you kind of get up close and personal with how this works.
Yeah, that would be awesome. That would be so much fun. I would love that. And you're not that far from me, I don't think.
No.
Southern Illinois isn't too far of a drive, so that would be fantastic.
We would love to have you here. You come up the night before. We'll take you out and let you see how how we're all running hoop nets, and we'll get you set up.
Awesome.
So just consider that your official invitation, provided it's all okay
right.
by July.
I hope so. But I'll be looking forward to that. Let's definitely stay in touch. I appreciate that. That will be fun. All right. Well, thank you again.
I really appreciate you inviting me to do this.
Of course.
I keep telling people, eat more carp.
Yeah.
Eat more carp.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to try it now, too. I've never tried it, so that will be the next thing on my list. All right, thanks for listening to this episode about this extremely important issue. Remember to check out the website at thewomanangler.com/158, where I posted some great resources you can check out to learn more about Asian carp. Stay tuned for next week's episode, just in time for Black Friday. I'm going to be talking with the creator of a product none of us outdoor adventurers should be going without. You won't want to miss it. It could be life-saving. That's all I'm going to reveal for now. See you next week.